Let me ask you a question. How would you describe your current role right now?
I think my role is to be a storyteller, a truth teller, and somebody who helps convene and mobilize Black people. I don't like negotiating with people who don't consider my humanity. I don't want to sit across the table and discuss my politics with people who don't consider my humanity.
Why do you think that is, that in 2026 we can still see color so divided?
I think because we never made racist white folks pay for their racism and bigotry.
There are major developments tonight in the case of a neighborhood watch captain in Florida who shot and killed an unarmed 17-year-old.
Continue to take to the streets to demand justice for George Floyd, African-American man killed by white police officer Derek Chauvin last week.
In this city, thousands of demonstrators marched to protest the death of Eric Garner, who died after being held in a chokehold by a New York City police officer.
This individualism that we have chased down for the last 20 years is killing us. Growing a platform, it was never about getting a lot of views. It was what I felt needed to be said that I didn't hear being said. I would read things and feel like there was context being left out. I felt like our humanity wasn't being considered.
Welcome to Business is War. My name is Elliott Forman, and on this platform, we teach, we learn, we grow, we earn. This is a place where we come to find out more than just information, but community. Today, our guest is Gary Chambers, Jr., an activist and advocate, a person from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, that is polarizing in every possible way. And today, Professor Chambers is going to take us through the run. So let's get to it, and welcome to the show.
Thank you, brother.
How you doing, man?
I'm good, man. It's Essence Weekend. It's always good to be with Black folks in Essence Weekend.
Well, is Essence still the same as it always was?
I would think that there's been some changes. You know, new ownership brings in new perspective, new line of vision, new ideas. So I think that there are certainly differences.
Okay, well, listen to me. That sounds good, but at the end of the day, you know, we got to keep getting better and keep growing year over year, no matter what. And unfortunately, the corporate culture is if it's not 30% growth every year, then it's not good. I don't believe that, but guess what? That's the narrative. So let me ask you, where are you from?
I'm from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, born and raised.
Baton Rouge?
Yeah.
I kind of like Baton Rouge a little bit.
It's a beautiful place, man.
Well, some would argue that.
This is true. It is a perspective that you either have or you don't, based on what you've either read in the media. But if you talk to people who are from Baton Rouge that raised there, even if you don't like the trajectory of the growth in the city, there's something about home that feels good.
Okay, well then why is there such a big cousin, little cousin relationship towards New Orleans?
I think that that's a historic thing. One, New Orleans feels like y'all the baddest thing in the state. Can't nobody tell you nothing.
There's only one reason to come to Louisiana. It's because of New Orleans.
And see, that's part of the problem right there. Okay.
So listen,
if that's the disposition we gonna have from the jump, then you're gonna have a little bravado that comes from that.
Okay. All right. Well, listen. I mean,
we feel like we somebody. Now we feel like we know we somebody.
We all have the best college. You have the best college in sports, you know.
We do. One of the best football teams in America, one of the best Black HBCU bands in America, really one of the best bands in America, just happens to be a HBCU in Southern. The only HBCU system in America, headquartered at Southern University in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And it's the state capital. It's where all of the decisions get made about the future of our state, its prosperity or lack thereof.
Let me ask you a question. How would you describe your current role right now?
I think my role is to be a storyteller, a truth teller, and somebody who helps convene and mobilize Black people, an entrepreneur and a father.
Okay.
Those are my primary responsibilities.
I like the way you put that. Now, let me ask you, do you feel like you can be successful in those roles?
Absolutely. I think I am successful in those roles. Of course, there are areas where I'd like to see things develop and improve, but I think for the things that I set my hands to, there's always progress.
Yeah. Before I get to the political side of you, which is polarizing, which is intelligent, intimidating, it's inspiring. Before I get there, how did you get there?
By accident. I was the co-founder of a media platform called the Rouge Collection in Baton Rouge.
Okay.
Two of my friends and I started that company in 2012. And I was the publisher of a magazine. We had a sports section, models, a fashion section. We talked about pop culture and things that were going on, as well as things that were happening in Baton Rouge. And we did it from a younger, blacker perspective. And then in one of those years, Trayvon Martin happened.
Wow.
And I wrote a column when Trayvon happened. I remember sitting in my office at the time. We had a staff meeting, I think, when the trial was going on or something like that. And the verdict came out, and we all sat in the room and cried together.
Wow.
And then a year or two later, Mike Brown happens, and I hold my first town hall. Like 30 people came.
Okay.
And I felt like it was something that we as young black people should be talking about, and so I did. And then in 2015, a brother named Lamar Johnson was pulled over by the police in Baker, which is a little town in East Baton Rouge Parish.
Sure.
And ended up in Parish prison because he had a warrant for something here in Orleans Parish. Officer ended up taking him to jail. And while he was in Parish prison, they said he hung himself.
Interesting.
Now, nothing was wrong with Lamar when he went into jail. He wasn't having any mental distress when he went to jail. And by all accounts, this was a simple thing where he should have went in, got bailed out, resolved his matter, and gone on with his life. His mother she was allowed to talk to him on the phone before he was arrested, because the cop was like, hey, your son's got a warrant, I'm gonna have to take him in. So she knew he went in. Once he gets in, next time she hears anything about her son, he's in ICU on a ventilator. I write a column about Lamar, and 40,000 people read it. That was the largest column that I had ever written at the Rouge Collection at that time. And that shifted me in a real way, because it's one thing for these things to happen in Florida or in St. Louis, in Ferguson. It's another thing when it happens in your city. And if I was holding a town hall about Mike Brown, then I definitely needed to do something or speak up about what had happened to Lamar Johnson. And so a couple months later, I went to my first city council meeting because our district attorney was attempting to open a misdemeanor jail, which was rounding up black folks who had warrants, traffic warrant citations and things of that matter, and holding them for 72 hours or until you pay your fine. So if you're a poor person that makes $8, $9 an hour, and then I can't pay a traffic ticket, then you bring me and arrest me and hold me in jail for 48 hours, 72 hours. Do I have my job when I get out of jail?
Number one.
Okay. And I probably couldn't pay the fine because I don't have a job adequate enough to pay my bills and pay this fine. And so I just felt like it was a debtor's prison. And if we couldn't take care of what we had in Parish prison, we don't need to be rounding thousands of people up. And so I went to my first city council meeting, spoke against that, and I ain't stopped since.
So you telling me that you went from journalist to activist?
I found out I was an activist in the newspaper. I never gave myself that label. Even today, I call myself an advocate more than an activist. And the reason is, it's activism when we black, it's advocacy when you white. White folks with Susan G. Komen advocating against cancer or for treatment against cancer, right? That's advocacy. Matter of fact, the folks who split up the parish in East Baton Rouge and started St. George, they were called advocates, that they were advocating for a school district for their children. But every time black people do something, we call it activism. And I think that's to do two things. It is to put a more revolutionary spin on it, and it is to make it not worthy of investing in.
So even the optics matter. So you go from a newspaper, a periodical, to seeing the bigger problem, because now your coverage is geared towards shining a light on that.
It shifted something in me. I think Trayvon shifted something in me at the core, because I just saw myself in him in so many ways. Just
I did too.
A young black man. And I have had numerous situations since Lamar where I never met these people, but I felt obligated to say something. And I think that for me, it wasn't about growing a platform. It was never about getting a lot of views. It was what I felt needed to be said that I didn't hear being said. I would read things and feel like there was context being left out. I felt like our humanity wasn't being considered. And I was angry. And I didn't always know how to, for a lack of better words, put sugar on shit. You know, I just felt like we needed to speak truthfully and plainly to people about the issues we had. And I felt like that was what we had a right to do. I didn't grow up in an environment where my parents were very affirming my entire life. I never had a doubt that I could do anything because I had parents who told me you can do anything in the world. My daddy, who raised me, William, would tell me when I was 8, you can be president, son.
Like that.
And so with that being instilled in me from a young age, I never went into the world doubting myself. So if I spoke up about something, I expect you to listen.
Gary, that's deep, because what you just identified is what I call in business the call of duty. Your call of duty was that you felt we were being underrepresented and that our truth wasn't being told, and that you wanted to be an advocate for that. And where does that take you? I mean, like, do you feel like we still have a chance? Because I sometimes question that. And I mean, I am speaking in the bigger, broader spectrum, because we look at the fact that it feels one step forward, 2 steps back on a regular basis. And so my next question is politics a truth when it comes to the way that humanity operates in this country?
I think that you asked 2 questions there. First part, is there hope or can we move forward? Yes, I think that there is. I have hope in the people, and the people have the power to change the government. I think that we often think the government is more powerful than the people, but the people empower those who are in the government.
I want you to know, I probably, if you had to ask me, I didn't know it, but I believe that the government was more powerful than the people.
The Louisiana only has a bigot in the governor's office because 500,000 people showed up to vote for him, and 400 or 300,000 voted for Sean Wilson. 925,000 registered black voters in the state of Louisiana.
That's unacceptable.
So if a man wins with 500,000 votes and there's 925,000 black folks in here, we just let him whoop our ass.
What do you say to the person that doesn't vote?
I say use a fool. Now people say we shouldn't disparage people. They have the right to or not to. If somebody taking 20, 30% of your money and you don't decide to show up to decide who makes the decision about your money, you a fool. We get into all of these other things. A lot of us, especially in Louisiana, because, you know, white people will dance to our music. They'll dance to Back That Ass Up by Juvenile.
Eat the food.
They'll eat the food and show up at our restaurants. They'll dance with us at Mardi Gras. But then they'll go into that same ballot box and vote against your interests and their own interests.
Against their own self-interest.
And some of us are in the logic that because they showed up at these events that we don't have the same level of racism that existed 30, 40 years ago in America, and we do. So I'm not gonna always pull in the person who has a logic that, oh, these things are not about race. So if that's not your thing, if you're not moved by the constructs working against black people, you ought to be moved by how is your money being spent? Do you feel like the roads are being paved well? Do you feel like the education system is improving? Do you feel like all of these cameras that are surveilling have made you any safer? If we have the 50th ranked crime in the country, but you being surveilled more than other people in the country, you have to ask yourselves, do you think this is a good use of your tax dollars? The money that you go to work every day and end up up giving 20-30% of your money to the government, if you don't feel like what they're doing with it is adequate, show your ass up to vote. It's really that simple. It's not, we've made this like, the system working against you, working against yourself. If 925,000 black people live in this state and no governor, hear me well, John Bell was elected with 700,000 votes. This man was elected with 500,000 votes. He got less votes than the man that we put in twice. And John Bell had 400,000 black votes when he got elected, the 2 times that he got elected. So even in the times that we were victorious in helping John Bell get there, we have never, as black people, maximized our full potential in this state. And so when you ask me, is there a path forward? Yeah, there's a path forward. I believe in a new Black South. I believe that if black people of means, those who have wealth and means, put their resources into the political structure in a way that they could get a return on that investment, we could transform the entirety of the South, because the majority of black people live in the Deep South. 55% of black people live in the Deep South. Georgia's 33% black. Louisiana's 33% black. Mississippi's 38% black, right? And the thing that we're not processing is the state of Louisiana has about a $40 or $50 billion a year budget. Now, we over here arguing about small fries. Mm-hmm. And if we get a black governor, we give the ability to put a black person in control of $40, $50 billion. That's transformational to me. That's another level of, because even if that individual does not seed a ton of money towards black entrepreneurs every day, mm-hmm. It is impossible. It is almost impossible for them to not be able to invest in black communities, because where did they get their votes from? And if they want to stay in office, how do they get back there? By investing in the people who put them there. And we are not getting the return on the investment because we ain't putting nobody nowhere.
So number one, we don't have a good participation grade.
Oh, it's awful.
And so I'm asking, what is it that I can tell to my audience and to a young black man, black woman, someone in the Deep South, that their vote does matter and that the politics do work, but you just aren't participating in it?
Caddo Parish, you had a black man win the sheriff's race by 2 votes in Caddo Parish. 2 votes. Don't tell me your vote don't matter. Now, they challenged it, okay?
Yeah.
They challenged it. The Supreme Court allowed the challenge to go through. The state Louisiana Supreme Court allowed it to go through. Black folk got pissed off that you decided to make them run again, and they won by a larger margin the next time. And you got the first black man elected as the sheriff of Caddo Parish right now.
Love it.
If that doesn't make a difference for the black folks who are in the jail that end up in certain situations, that you're going to be treated humanely mm-hmm. by the individual that's there, and that if you're not treated humanely, that you have the ability to hold this person accountable in a way that you don't the other folk. They ain't sitting in your church. They ain't going to church with you. And even if you don't go to church, your grandmama do, your auntie do, your cousin do, mm-hmm. and he going to that church. And he don't want to get side-eyed and talked about like a dog when he come up in there, so he going to handle his business with you.
Heard that.
We have to have, I don't like negotiating with people who don't consider my humanity. I don't want to sit across the table mm-hmm. and discuss my politics with people who don't consider my humanity.
Why do you think that is, that in 2026 we can still see color so divided?
I think because we never made racist white folks pay for their racism and bigotry. We make everybody pay for their sins but them. And what I mean by that is, if you go back to post-slavery, post-Reconstruction, during Reconstruction, when Southern whites were upset about the outcome of the Civil War, our ancestors there were 49 black men elected to the state legislature here in Louisiana in the 1860s, 1870s. 49 black men, 49 white men. They wrote a constitution then. Those black men and white men created the first public education system in this country, in this state.
Okay.
That public education system, because before that, parishes funded their own education system. So if you didn't have funding, you didn't have public schools.
Okay.
Public schools getting created through them. Mental health hospitals get created through that legislature. One of the other things that legislature did, though, they banned former members of the Confederacy from being able to vote.
Wow.
It said if you was a part of being a racist bigot to decide that people should stay in slavery and you was willing to go to war for it,
Yeah.
you don't get to participate in the democratic process because you don't think everybody equal. When those black men came out of the legislature post-Reconstruction, they did away with all those laws and stripped us of our right to vote. But we still around here acting like there's not a need to have a firm hand when we're in leadership against those who oppress and oppose us.
You see, in my mind, I'm thinking it's hard to be racist in 2026, but the numbers don't lie.
It ain't hard to be racist because racism is taught.
For sure.
That's not something we come here with. It's taught. Somebody taught that child to be a bigot. Somebody taught that young man that somebody was less adequate or inferior to them. That's not something that we come here programmed with. And so because of that, that is why it continues to exist. When you don't punish people, when there is no consequence for the action, you just pass it on to the next generation. If there was a consequence, at some point, some of those white folks would have said, hey, we can't keep doing this like this.
Right.
And the truth is, when there was consequence, when the Civil Rights Act came in and people had to move differently, people decreased their loud bigotry. When we got relaxed on pushing the line on these issues, those people got louder again.
Yeah.
And now we are at a greater disadvantage than maybe some of our ancestors were 50 years ago.
You know, I just don't feel like we should have to fight against not only the bigotry in our country, the racism in our country, but against the people who live in our country. Like, can you imagine that? Listen, this is civil. This is a civil matter. And so that's the part where I feel like the law cannot manage the civil disobedience.
The law is only as powerful as those who enforce it.
Let me give you an example. Did or did not the Attorney General just get indicted and the governor say he's going to pardon him?
Not only did the governor say he was going to pardon her, this morning the state Supreme Court stayed the case. You had two of the justices, John Guidry and one of the white justices, wrote a dissenting opinion basically saying she didn't have to pay her bond. She didn't have to. Yes, sir. Because she filed a writ to go up to the Supreme Court. She skipped the entire process.
Yes.
Now, if you or I get arrested or get indicted by a grand jury, we are going to have to go be arraigned. We're going to have to go pay our bond and all of that. She skipped the whole process, went to the state Supreme Court, and they stayed the situation.
You know, I know another case like that. Let me tell you what it was. It was the insurrection, January 6th, because everybody got to walk out.
Mm-hmm. Now, could you imagine a situation?
I can't.
Where 3,000-4,000 black people stormed
the
in
Capitol.
a government building.
Yes.
Not even the Capitol, a government building,
Yes.
period. And
Yes.
nobody ended up.
Defecated on desks. There was a murder. There was a death.
Could you imagine how many more deaths would have been if it were black people?
Yeah, that's rough. But that's something that we always.
But that logic, the fact that we know that, is why we should never stop fighting against racism, right? Because if you know that the system that currently exists will not permit you to do the same things that these other folks do, that you will be held to a greater account for those same crimes, then you have an obligation to ensure that justice looks equitable for everybody. And until it does, you can't stop. I think what happened for us, and my dad who raised me is 84, so he was born in a segregated Baton Rouge. Went to segregated Scotlandville High School, and his perspective is different than a lot of us because he lived in a world where black people had no choice but to spend their money with other black people.
Correct.
Because you didn't have the ability to call white people to do certain duties for you because they would not, or you would not be adequately treated.
That wasn't that long ago.
It wasn't. My dad is still alive. He's 84. My mom is 80.
That's within one lifetime for the record.
And these people lived a life where they were adults before desegregation happens. Okay? Mm-hmm. They weren't children. They were adults before desegregation happens. So if that's the process that they went through, one of the things my dad talked about is how when desegregation happened, he said you would go to black people's houses and you would see matchbooks because people used to smoke in restaurants. And Post-segregation, black folks would have matchbooks from different restaurants on their mantelpieces to show that they went to this white restaurant or that white restaurant. And it was like a badge of honor.
A trophy.
To put it on your mantelpiece to say that you went to all these places. The symbol to me that is every time you went to one of those places, you weren't at a black-owned restaurant. And then when we wonder why the community or the restaurants in our community ended up closing, because we started going to other places. Because we got more options, we started choosing an option other than ourselves. That is, we have to always have a confidence to be about choosing black people and be unapologetic about it. Jewish people any day of the week can go and support another Jewish business and nobody questions them.
Correct.
Hispanic people can go and support another Hispanic business and nobody questions them. Asian people can go support another Asian person and business and nobody questions them. As a matter of fact, it is expected of them.
Let me give you some pushback. But remember, because black people have had their heritage cut in half, it's the single reason why the support mechanism isn't as entangled as some of the other races.
I think that is true, but within 50 years, we went from having our own bus lines in our community to not. So that's a choice. That's not a, nobody did that to us. We made choices when we had options. When we didn't have options, we didn't have the ability to make those choices. The same way right now today, most black people who make six figures live in majority white neighborhoods. That's a choice. That's a choice. I live in an all-black neighborhood today. I live across the street from my mom and daddy because that's my choice. Because I live in a community that we don't have no homicides. We have no break-ins. And that has existed as long as all of those black folks have lived there. Because the people who live in that community are former professors, for engineers. My mom was a school teacher. My daddy was a janitor. I lived across the street from a black vet whose husband worked at Dow Chemical, right? I live in the house that the veterinarian used to live in. And if the black, now when they moved out of that house, they didn't move to the other side of town. They built them a home to retire in, a beautiful mansion, mini mansion, down the street from the same house.
Heard that.
On the black side of town.
Black side of town. So what does each generation have as far as a responsibility goes to carrying the torch?
I think, one, we got to recognize the accomplishments of the previous generation. I think one of our shortcomings is that we look at all that has not happened, and that does not give us the true perspective of what progress we've made. When we don't quantify where we were with the financial conditions within our community, we didn't have the financial, we didn't have as many black millionaires and as much black wealth as we have today. We have to ask ourselves, with this progress, what is our responsibility? And that is acknowledging where we've come from, but then holding the line on those things and then advancing ourselves further. And what I mean by that is, if the generations before got us the Civil Rights Act, which gave us all of these protections for black people not to be discriminated against in business. And then all of these black people make money in business, but then they don't advocate or fund advocates. That's how we end up with all of our protections being stripped away, and now all the black people that had those contracts wondering where their contracts went. Because we're not holding the line on what we've accomplished while we push for further.
Gotcha.
I think that we have, and there's two phases to this. The previous generation's job was civil rights,
okay,
and the generation behind that came for silver rights for their money, but in the process of going after their money, gave up the power side of it. And the lack of power, we have this belief in the black community today that we got to get the money first.
That is correct.
What white folks have shown us time and time again is that money sometimes gives you power, but power will almost always give you money. Trump was not as wealthy as he is today before he was president, because power yielded him the ability to get more money.
Well, he's absolutely made his presidency about a self-enrichment campaign, for sure.
And let me say this, no person in our lifetime who went into the presidency came out of the presidency with less than they went into it with.
Yeah.
Now, he's taken it to
Whole other level.
distasteful
Yeah.
level that we could never have imagined, right? But if you ask me if George Bush getting paid $300,000, $400,000 for a speaking engagement, yeah. If Barack Obama's being paid $300,000, $400,000 for a speaking engagement, yeah. And I had no problem with that.
Right.
I had no issue with them being compensated for them showing up to speak or any of that. You should have some value for.
There's a level of celebrity to it.
Not just that. There's a level of wisdom that comes from serving in a role of that level, that magnitude, that you can share a perspective that very few people in the world have the ability to share. So there is a value to that. So I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that there's an issue with that. What I am saying is that power always yields more resources. And we chase money before we chase power. And power for us as Black people, especially in the South, is much easier for us to get if we organize.
Before we get back to the conversation, I need your help. If Business is War has given you a strategy, an idea, or the motivation to keep building, follow and subscribe today. Every subscription helps us keep the platform growing, bringing you real stories, practical tools, and battle-tested insight to equip business owners and aspiring entrepreneurs. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts, follow us on your favorite platform, and share the show with someone who's serious about winning in business. Business is war. Let's keep building together. So how do we organize?
I think that we have to get to the point where, number one, we agree on three things, whatever those three things are in a community. I think that may vary for different communities. Some communities are wealthier. Wealthier Black communities may not have the challenges of some of the Black communities with less wealth. And so you have to determine what are the three things that we collectively want to see happen in this community. And we organize by getting Black wealth should be in one table, pulling their resources together. Black clergy should be at a table. Black entertainers should be at a table. Black regular community folks should be at a table. And then we come all together because each table recognizes what their strengths are. One comes with wealth, one may come with networking, one may come with marketing, one may come with legs and mobility. But then when you put all of that at the table together and those groups agree on the three things you want to accomplish, you can take over a city, a state, a country.
You know, I think a part of the American dream is that there's only one America. But unfortunately, as of late, we've seen it to be a very healthy, a very wide divide. That's unfortunate. So why is it that we're moving up in age and as a country, but we're moving back in civil rights? Like, what in the world would make you think to roll back, civil rights? Like, we're talking about a person's right to live,
The people who, this is where I think we get lost in translation. My dad's 84. The bigots didn't die, they just got quiet. Mm-hmm. The same people who were outside yelling against people going into school, a lot of those people are still alive. Some of those people are still alive. They're 90 years old, sitting in a house somewhere with a lot of money, calling their politician. That's how.
Trying to make America great again.
We've never not had a two-tiered system. We've never not had that. We just got fog-eyed. We started having, access to a little more stuff and started acting like we was cool. Like it was cool. You could move into this neighborhood, now you think you special.
The pressure got taken off.
And the pressure's back on.
Oh, is it? Yes, it is. So one thing I noticed about you is that you're unapologetically Black. Mm-hmm. And I think we should all have more not just respect, but awareness and understanding and value in ourselves. Because, the marketing will make us feel like we're inferior in a lot of ways. And so what do you say to the young Black man that comes out of college, 23 years old, looking for a place to go, to build a family, to put a 30, 35-year career in place? Where does he go at?
There's a multitude of places you go. You stay in the South, number one. Depending on what your career is, Charlotte is a beautiful place. Durham is a beautiful place. Raleigh. There are places, Birmingham, New Orleans, Baton Rouge, Shreveport, Houston, Memphis. And I'm saying places that we have the power to do transformative things for Black people. Mm-hmm. Charlotte and Durham are just booming with economic opportunity. North Carolina is one of the most prosperous places for black people in America.
Wow.
Then you've also got Maryland, where you've got a black governor and a black mayor in Baltimore, where in May you had, April or May, 1 month you had 4 homicides, the other month you had 8. That's a city that normally has 30 homicides in a month. But when you put a black governor and a black mayor there, those cities have become safer because the resources are going towards things that help reduce crime, because opportunities are expanding for people. And so those are places that I think you look to. The thing that I think that we have to consider is Atlanta is a place that is always referred to as the Black Mecca,
Sure.
right? But why is it considered the Black Mecca? Because 40, 50 years ago, black people in Atlanta organized and elected a black man named Maynard Jackson, who was audacious enough to help put black people on bank boards and put black people in position to be on boards and commissions around Atlanta that they had never been on. Other than that, to help make sure that black contractors were a part of the process of the expansion of the Hartsfield-Jackson Airport. Those things help make that a transformative place. And we have to position ourselves to be in places where, one, we have the fastest pace to be able to do that again.
Okay.
And we get to do that again in the Deep South faster than we get to do that anywhere else.
So you recently made headlines because you, at a council meeting, you said that the removal of an elected official in, I believe, the city of New Orleans, it was Reconstruction. Mm-hmm. Can you explain that?
Yeah, I was at the state capitol about Calvin Duncan's seat being taken away and these judges that they have taken away in New Orleans. Calvin was rightfully, duly elected the clerk of criminal court here in Orleans Parish. And then our legislature decided to dissolve it because the governor and the attorney general and them wanted them to do it.
Is there a reasoning behind it? Aside from the obvious bigotry play,
their thing is that they say that their goal is to make the court system in New Orleans like the rest of the courts in the state. Here's the problem with that. New Orleans is not like the rest of the state. New Orleans sees a volume of people in a year far greater than any other city in this state. Millions of people come into the city of New Orleans every year. Mm-hmm. That means that the crimes that happen here, the volume of people that end up arrested, end up adjudicated, needing to go through the criminal court system is far greater than Evangeline Parish, far greater than Tangible Hope Parish, far greater than St. Martin Parish. And so if we were to say that Orleans Parish court system should operate exactly the same way as parishes that see 100,000 people a year versus a court system that sees 500 to 900,000 people a year, I think that is where we are being fooled by people who will tell you anything because it sounds good. But the only real reason is that the people who are making those decisions and that money in that court system are black. Here's what you got to know. Every judge that they removed made 6 figures. Every judge that they removed had staff. Most of the staff that worked for every one of those judges made 6 figures. How do you power a political apparatus for black people financially? How do black people advance ourselves? Many black people have advanced ourselves through government roles, through education system, healthcare, and government, right? So if those are the avenues that we know we can get into and advance ourselves to a 6-figure career, we've done that, and we've done it well. Well, if you have more judges here, that means you have more opportunity economically to advance black people. Every time you take away a judge, how many black jobs did you take away?
So you're looking at the bigger financial play as well as the human.
That's what it is. If all of these black people down here have political power, they also have money now. And they're investing in candidates. And those candidates could come up one day and probably run for attorney general. And if there's a bunch of judges down there with a bunch of money and the people that work for them have a bunch of money, and if you got judges on the civil court that are black, that are making decisions that white people may not like about some of these civil cases, that may not necessarily help them financially. See, we think that this stuff is all about you and me every day. Okay, how many of them black judges down there ruling over cases that they would prefer it was not a black person making the decision?
Well, we know a little bit about packing the courts now, don't we?
Oh, fully.
So, speaking of the criminal justice system, is it still a pipeline? is it still a place where dreams go to die and families are divided? Because in my mind, I don't know if the criminal justice system from 1975 is any different than 2026. So the question becomes, have we made any strides, or are we rolling back the clock on that?
We are making strides in the criminal justice system. Jeff Landry, our governor, is attempting to do everything he can to roll those strides back. But prior to Jeff Landry getting into the governor's office, Louisiana was on a trajectory to start reducing how many people we had incarcerated by some of the legislation that was passed under John Bell. Jeff has undone much of that, and so it's going to take us some time to see how bad these numbers are from the arrest and the laws that they put in place. It has not made us safer, but in America overall, there are less people incarcerated than there were 20 years ago.
Okay.
And I think that is progress for us. Now, have we gotten to where we need to get to? No. I think towards the end of the Obama years, you started to see people really start to look at criminal justice issues in a different light.
Okay.
And then in the Trump years, we're back at trying to incarcerate our way out of this. The thing that we have to remember as taxpayers and voters is that we spend more money to jail people than we do to educate them.
Oh, crazy.
And so the amount of money that we are spending to incarcerate people, that it is not, the pathway is not working for us. The safest places in America are some of the wealthiest places in America. If you can get a job, if you can have opportunity, you can typically resolve a lot of the issues that end up with people ending up in the judicial system, especially when you talk about people who end up there for theft or robbery or crimes of that nature. A lot of that can be resolved if we create more opportunity. And I think that we have had legislatures and elected officials who, when bad things happen, the answer is lock them up, right? When the real deal is there are bad things that happen and we should hold people accountable when they do bad things. But we should not alter the entirety of our system, right, in order to address what we're not dealing with the root causes of. Because if we're not making sure that our children are better educated, and that not just that they're better educated, but when they come out of that education system, that there's actually an opportunity that gives them a job that gives them a livable wage, right? Then you're not really going to reduce crime. And so no matter how many times you change the laws, no matter how many more police officers you hire, right now in Baton Rouge, there's $1 million being spent to turn what used to be OBGYN offices at Women's Hospital into office space for the feds to be able to come in and add more police officers to Baton Rouge. We have 11 different police agencies in East Baton Rouge Parish. Baton Rouge Police Department, the Baton Rouge Sheriff's Department, Baker Police Department, Zachary Police Department, Central Police Department, Southern University Police Department, LSU Police Department, BRCC Police Department, the Feds, Louisiana State Police, Louisiana Department of Public Safety, and the people, ABC, tobacco, and those folk, and wildlife and fisheries.
That's a lot of government enforcement
in East Baton Rouge Parish, and we needed to spend another $1 million to put more cops in the parish because of crime. We got to be the dumbest people in the world. Now, those offices that have been empty in that building for the last 15, 20 years, that could have been affordable housing that we could have created in our city. That could have been a business incubator that we created in our city. But instead, we created a place to put more white men to come chase and lock up black people who lack opportunity.
So you're famous for actually being the politician who wanted to legalize marijuana.
Yes, sir.
Do you still feel the same way about it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, right. When I was driving up here down Poitras, there's a sign for a medical cannabis dispensary that says you can go buy medical cannabis, right? But a black man who sells that same weed in New Orleans East, he got to get locked up for it. Now, you can put billboards in the community right now to tell, matter of fact, some of the billboards I've seen in Baton Rouge tell you how much you can get an eighth for on the billboard.
That is crazy.
You can get an eighth for this on the billboard, but a black man is getting matter of fact, there was a video of BRPD arresting a black man for marijuana. He had nothing else. He had marijuana on him, and it was a kind of a funny exchange, so it went viral, right? But they called the person that he was going to go drop his weed to and all of that, and they took this black man to jail for the same thing that a white man is paying rappers to come promote his business for and come buy it. So yeah, I think we should legalize cannabis, especially if the white man get paid off of all of that.
Yeah, we probably do need to legalize it and just put the taxation process in place so that it could be a real business.
Colorado has one of the best education systems in the country. They legalized cannabis before most states did, and they've put more money into their education system from the money that comes from cannabis. How do you think Colorado ends up with a great education system? Because they're funding that education, and they're funding it through the resources of people's pleasure.
Gotcha. Well, let's be honest. Nobody's ever smoked a lot of weed and decided to go speed. You know,
More people are killing you from alcohol every year than anybody on cannabis.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's keep in mind that it does grow out of the ground.
And you end up with, we allow our politicians to sit and take drinks together, right? And we think that that's acceptable and a good thing, but we judge people if they smoke. So you can get there and get a bourbon and have 3 bourbons in a conversation with somebody. Now, you lit when you walk out of here and shouldn't drive. And you're going to tell us you have a driver, we hope. Mm-hmm. But the person who smoked a blunt and is cool 20 minutes later, that person should be in jail, but not that politician who could probably take a life.
I think it's taboo stigma. You know, I think it is. But let's be honest, it has been closely associated with black folks.
Yeah.
Do you have any more political aspirations?
No, I don't know. I ran for office because I think that I had something to offer at the time. I was just having this conversation with some friends of mine that they said I was ahead of my time in some ways because a lot of the folks or the things that I was talking about then that people are welcoming or more open to today.
Sure.
And I think that if in the future the right opportunity presents itself, I may consider it. But it is not the top of my priority list right now. And the reason is I don't think I have to be elected to be effective. I've helped to move hundreds of millions of dollars into my community without being elected. I've helped to change policy without being elected. For me, if we are not serious as a people about how we shift and change, no one person in power is going to change the material conditions of black people. That person can influence the change of those material conditions. But the way I brought up Maynard Jackson earlier, while he was transformative as the mayor of Atlanta, and while black people consider Atlanta to be the Mecca, one of the largest wealth gaps between black people and white people in America is still in Atlanta because, and that's no fault to Atlanta, in my opinion. You still have every mayor of Atlanta who has to answer to every governor of Georgia. And if the governor is not going to help that city and all of its people prosper, then you're not going to have those wealth gaps close. If you're not having the support at every level to help be intentional about addressing these issues, then it's not going to progress at scale. And so I think when we look at those things, we have to really position ourselves as a community and a people so that when the people that we put in power are there, that we can collectively be successful. Because I just don't believe that any one individual is the answer.
So what is the answer? I know that, you know, we've covered a lot, and the reason we did that is because I am just walking through the battlefields. We're talking about politics, civil activism, we're talking about education, we're talking about opportunity, we're talking about economic impact. We've spoken on a lot of topics because I just want to make sure that I get as much meat off the bone as I can. Now, when I say what can we do, tell my audience how we can impact Black excellence and opportunity right here in the Deep South.
I think that it is, number one, and this is just simple, if you just a regular person and you hear this, whatever the next election is, find out who the candidates are that you're supporting and knock your neighborhood. You ain't gotta, it doesn't have to be, knock your own neighborhood. Engage with the people in your community and make sure all of the people in your community are participating. If you live in a neighborhood with 50 homes or 150 homes, knock those 50 neighbors, knock those 150 doors between now and election day, and increase the amount of black people that are participating. If you are in a social group or a fraternity or a sorority or any of these things, engage the people within that network and get them to engage 10 people within their network. We have to collectively begin to work together towards a collective goal. This individualism that we have chased down for the last 20 years is killing us.
It is.
We don't have any ability to move and groove in the manner in which we could because everybody's on their own individual Black excellence journey. We're it's my thing, it's my group, my club, my business, well, what do we have, Negro?
Yeah.
Right? What gyms, what streets can you go on today the way that we could 50 years ago and say every business right here is Black? When I hear those things, that makes me feel good to know that we had that. I want it again.
Yeah.
I want to go a place and we just know that everybody over here, everything over here, all the businesses here, that doctor there, that lawyer over there, the baker over there, the seamstress over there, everybody over here Black.
Okay.
That to me is how we build an ecosystem and a political system, a business ecosystem and a political system that gives us the viability to be successful as a people in this country, irrespective of anybody else. And the reason I say that in the Deep South, if Black people make up 33% of Louisiana, let's say a few more of our cousins moved to Louisiana, we made up 45%, and we voted at the potential that we have. You only need 5-10% of white people to agree with y'all to do anything.
Which we do have.
Which you have. You have probably 20-30% that agree with you, right? And you take that 20-30% with the 90% of the Black people that you got, and you really get to do some things that are transformative. This state was one of the first of all, we elected the first Black person to Congress ever in the history of this country. Willis Menard was elected from New Orleans, Louisiana. Okay? So if the first Black person ever elected to Congress, now here's the catch. Willis Menard was not allowed to be seated in Congress.
Why?
Because he was Black. And they said it wasn't time yet. So they did not allow him to be seated. Follow that up, PBS Pinchback gets elected from Louisiana to the United States Senate. They don't allow him to be seated. Black people here in Louisiana were studied by Kevin Roberts, who wrote Project 2025, helped author Project 2025. He studied Black folks in Louisiana during Reconstruction and prior to the Civil War to understand what we were doing. Why? Because we were some of the most radical, audacious Black people in the world.
And the programming is so deep now that we don't have that edge anymore.
All we got to do is just look around this city and see all of the potential that exists within it with no resources. And imagine what would be possible if we just mobilize and then put the resources there. It is not a matter of the resources not existing in Louisiana. It is a matter of who decides where the resources go.
Gotcha. So how do we make community cool again? Because for whatever reason, I don't know if it's crab in the barrel. I don't know if that mentality is really the real root reason. I just don't know. But I can say without a doubt that it is not cool to share the answers to the test with somebody on the same block as you. And I just don't understand it.
I think that that's a mentality for some people. I think this pressure that the government and all of these folks has on people's head is making certain people have a different viewpoint on some of that. But ultimately, I think that we're never going to get everybody.
Okay.
That's one thing we need to know up front. But the way we make this cool, we got to engage people. We got to talk to people. Mm-hmm. I don't have a deficit of young people, old people, rappers, to plant workers who rock with what I do. and I think it's because I'm willing to stand up for black people. I think that has always been cool. Standing up for your people has always been something that black folks rocked with, supported, and had a little pride behind.
Right.
I think what we've done is...
That's the word, pride.
What we've done is we've made sucker shit cool.
Right.
We've made it cool to go over there and hang out with people who really don't care nothing about us. We've made it acceptable that if you was getting your money, you could go over there and do some sucker stuff against black folk, right? That's where we've screwed up. We haven't necessarily, it's still cool to stand up for black folk. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. Everything that I am is because I stand up for black folk. Because I speak up for us. And the hundreds of thousands of people who follow me, whether they black or white, they know he gonna stand up at some point and say something on behalf of his people, right? The problem is that we have made it cooler to be a sucker because you got money.
Yeah.
Right? Because you got, and we could just use Target as one example.
Okay, let's do it.
Okay? Black America made a decision collectively. We ain't rocking with that. We ain't going to Target right now. We choose them as the target because we really like them and you decided to play some shit with us, so we ain't coming in there.
Yeah.
Once we made that decision, any black person who took a contract with Target while black people had taken a position against them, sucker, right? But none of those people have been made to pay a cost.
Wow.
That's the problem. There is no cost to doing sucker shit no more.
No, there isn't.
When Sammy Davis Jr. endorsed Richard Nixon, black people were booing him every time he showed up. To the point that he had to show up at a concert and sing and cry in front of black people. So black folk would start considering him okay again. Because he decided, because he was a part of the Rat Pack, that he could make a decision that was contrary to the decision that black America had made at the time.
Heard that.
So Sammy Davis Jr. wasn't good with black folk at that point. And everywhere he went, they made him feel that. To the point that he showed up one day in tears at a concert singing to black people. And then they gave him a little hand clap and said, all right, Sammy.
Yeah.
All right. We see some repentance in you today.
Yeah, conviction. For
Okay?
sure.
We're not putting that level of pressure on people. You can go out there and do doggone near anything to us as a community, and we don't make you pay a real consequence for it. You can go perform for Trump tomorrow, and there's no real consequence for you. You can go get an ad deal with Target, and there's no consequence for you. We still gonna come to the concert. We still gonna follow you. Until we make a decision that we gonna really make somebody pay, people gonna still play these dumb games on us.
Checks and balances.
Yes, sir.
So I'm going to humbly ask you to give us a mission. Tell us what the play is. What's next for us? What do we need to do? What should we be looking for? What's our chess move?
I think the number one thing that we could do as a people is begin to invest in. There's a brother running for the United States Senate in Mississippi named Scott Cologne. He's a district attorney of a county in Mississippi, and he's running for the Senate. Every black person who hears this can go get that brother some money. Whatever your level is, whatever amount of resources you have, if it's $5, if it's $20, if it's $1,000, go get that brother some money.
Yes.
Because that's the blackest state in America.
Yes, it is.
And he has an opportunity to become the United States Senator from Mississippi. What does that mean for
That
you?
has to be the first time ever, right?
That would be the first black senator from Mississippi. And what that means for you as a black person is that's another black person in the United States Senate where we only have 5 black people there. And this is the most we've ever had in the Senate, okay? And one of them is a Republican, so you throw him away. It would be somebody else there to appropriate money to black people. The United States Senate is the most exclusive club in America. It's 100 members elected by the people of this country, and you need 51 of them to pass money. That's the biggest purse strings in America. Trillions of dollars get spent through the federal government every day. All you black folk who love money, why don't you love the government then? They got more money than any of your favorite celebrity. That's where you have the ability to actually influence the money. The next thing, after you invest in Scott Cologne, invest in somebody in your own state. in your own city. Find somebody within your community to invest in politically. The next thing, find a organizer, not just a political person, but an organizer in your community and invest in them. Because all of us are not going to go out there and do what Gary Chambers does. Everybody can't go speak at the microphone and say what I say, because some of you got a job that you got to keep. Some of you got a contract that you got to keep. I understand that. Yeah. So I'm free. I'm going to go out there and speak. But there's a Gary Chambers in your community. Mm-hmm. How much resources have you put in their hands to ensure that they stay free? How much contracts or speaking opportunities or whatever it is that you can do to support that person who's out there on the front lines so that that person can stay free and out there on the front lines? Because the way people end up not free or end up compromised is because the people who should be supporting them are not. Mm-hmm. The people who have the six-figure jobs, the people who have the multi-million-dollar businesses are not investing their resources in those avenues. The third thing I would say is spend time in your community. Engage your neighbor. If you walk around, just take a walk and talk to your neighbor. If you live in a black community, talk to your neighbors. If you invest in your politician, if you invest in your advocate, and you talk to your neighbor, those are the three pathways for us to begin to build community again. And if we build community again, I think that's the way that we end up answering our problems.
Okay. What's next for you?
I do Civics for the People. That is a big thing for me right now. It's a interactive workshop that I do that teaches people how the government works. I would like to take that all over the country. I think that it is something that needs to happen. Most people don't understand how government works, but by the time people walk out of that 2-hour session, they end up with a deeper understanding and a deeper desire to be involved. And so that's a piece of it. I'm writing and always storytelling. So there's some things that we're working on visually to continue to tell stories of Black people.
So we know what the mission is and we know what's next for you. How can people support you?
You can go to Gary Chambers on social media, follow and support me, and the links in my bio have ways to support Civics for the People.
I want to encourage you to do more. Not that you're not already doing a lot, but I think that everybody should know your name. Red, white, and blue. And I want to see you keep winning. I want to see you keep doing God's will and pushing, because we need it more than ever. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think we have legitimately heard a civics lesson from Professor Chambers. I am delighted to say that today I feel a little bit more engaged, a little bit more involved, and I feel like we've learned a lot today. And I want to encourage you not only to follow him, but to subscribe and like and just do anything you can to support and pour into him, because we need people like him, because radicalism and change does happen when somebody's willing to say enough is enough. In business, every sale matters, but how you process that sale matters too. As the founder of Bonita Payments, we help business owners simplify payment processing, improve cash flow, and choose the right point of sale technology for how their business actually operates. Whether you run a retail store, restaurant, or online business, or multiple locations, you deserve secure solutions, competitive rates, and real support from people who understand business. Stop treating payment processing like another expense. Turn it into a tool for growth. Visit bonitapayments.net and let's make every sale count.